Well, I just finished watching The Beaver for the first time. I thought I'd record some thoughts on it. Well, The Beaver was this movie from a year or two ago. You might remember it. It was probably meant to be Mel Gibson's big comeback role. It was a movie where he plays a man named Walter Black, a almost hopelessly depressed man who finds a way to confront his depression through talking through a beaver hand puppet. He talks through the beaver hand puppet in this cockney English accent. It's supposed to be a way for him to deal with his depression. This movie was directed by Jodie Foster. She starred with Mel Gibson uh, in Maverick, and they're very good friends. And, and this movie was a major flop, probably because Mel Gibson got into another one of his infamous scandals at around the same time the movie was meant to be released, which made them shelve it and basically try to re-edit it to make it look like anything other than a Mel Gibson movie, or like the movie really is. The Beaver was actually a very famous screenplay even before it was made into a movie. It was written by Kyle Killeen. Uh, he's a writer. He wrote and created the NBC series Awake that lots of people liked, was recently canceled, and other another series like that. And this screenplay was at the top of the blacklist, and the blacklist is listed some of the very favorite unproduced screenplays of the year, depending on surveys done of different production companies, and lots of different people seem to want to get their hands on this movie. I remember reading lots of different stories with actors who were attached to it, but for the most part, the actors who were attached to it were comedians. Steve Carell was going to play Walter Black. Jim Carrey is supposed to be Walter Black. And while I have the utmost respect for those actors, Jim Carrey is a very terrific actor. He would have been very great in this role. I feel the casting comedian in the role of Walter Black might have made them try to turn it into too much of a comedy. I mean, that's what this movie was marketed as, a kind of a quirky, Sundancey comedy, which I can really see why they decided to go with that. I mean, when I was reading the screenplay for the first time, it was really came across like that at times on page, but I think what Jodie Foster did was a good idea. Was directing this movie straight, playing it very straight, and hiring somebody like Mel Gibson, who's a terrific actor. Most people tend to forget that, only see him as like an action star or as a crazy guy, both of which are true, but he's also a terrific talent as an actor, a very good dramatic actor, and he puts that to very good use here. I mean, you really believe him from the very first time you see him. And that could probably be a problem with some people. I've always been a fan of Mel Gibson as an actor, and I try to separate him from his public persona, but some people might not be able to see past the baggage that this role carries, especially since it was considered so much of a parallel between Mel Gibson the person and Mel Gibson as an actor. This depressed, possibly mentally ill guy who's reached rock bottom and is trying to dig himself out of this hole he's been buried in. But but despite all this, the Beaver is not completely Mel Gibson's show. This is a very complex screenplay, and not just this semi-comic story of a guy who's talking through a beaver puppet. There's Jodie Foster. In addition to directing, she plays his wife. She gives a good performance here, and Anton Yelchin, he plays his oldest son, his teenage son, who's trying to basically purge himself of all the similarities he sees between himself and his father, and it also makes money on the side by writing people's term papers for them. And there's also Jennifer Lawrence. She was in Winter's Bone. She got an Oscar nomination for Winter's Bone. She's also played Mystique in X-Men First Class, and most recently she was Katniss in The Hunger Games. And she's also very excellent here. She plays like the most popular girl in school, the leader of the cheerleading squad, a 4.0 student, who goes to the Anton Yelchin character to try to have him write her graduation speech for her. They start to have a little romance together. It's a very, very good performance. The performances are by far the best thing in this movie, which doesn't say the movie as a whole is bad. It's just that there are some things about it that just don't gel very well. I mean, for lots of the movie, we don't seem to realize what the movie The Beaver thinks of the Beaver. I mean, obviously, it's tough to really take a movie seriously at times where it's a guy talking to everybody through a beaver puppet as if it's totally natural. And thankfully the movie realizes this. And right from the beginning, we know for sure that that's Mel Gibson talking to the beaver. And Mel Gibson's performance is fantastic here. I'm not sure if I've ever seen him give a better performance in this movie than in any movie other than that. I mean, he he probably gives as good a performance as you can imagine of a depressed guy who seems to be talking through a puppet as if it's an actual thing. And that's kind of where the movie stumbles a little bit. I mean, the arc of the movie is somewhat of Mel Gibson using this puppet as a way to talk to people because he's too depressed to talk to them as himself. And as the movie goes on, eventually the puppet starts to take control of his personality. You know, the depression turns into psychosis. I'm not sure how psychologically accurate all this is. Some people with background in this might be able to explain it better, but the thing is, it's it's tough to tell exactly when this change occurs, when it stops being the way for him to talk to people, and when it becomes the only way for him to talk to people. And when he starts to realize this, and when other people start to realize this, it really starts to become confusing as to how sympathetic we're supposed to find this character. And the climax of the movie, this big thing that I'm not going to spoil for you, just something that I did not believe at all. I think it seemed a bit over the top, something that they could have come up with something but subtler way to deal with it. And that's another thing. There are some parts of this movie that are a bit way too on the nose, I might think. You know, some of the things involving the parallels between Mel Gibson's character and Anton Yelchin's character. Some of the symbolism is too literal, a bit too heavy-handed, but overall, this is a good movie. There are some parts that are funny, some parts that are very dramatic, some parts where you're not sure if you're supposed to laugh at them or cry at them, but Mel Gibson's performance is fantastic. So is Anton Yelchin and Jennifer Lawrence. I also want to single off this actor. I can't think of his name. I don't know his name at the moment, but I'll add it into an annotation when I upload this. He's the actor who plays Mel Gibson's youngest son. He's a fantastic child actor. I wish there was more of him. I wish he had more screen time. But probably one of the very best child performances of that age that I've seen. I hope this kid has a career ahead of him, and I hope that his career hasn't been hurt by appearing in this movie that was a big flop in the box office. But despite that, I think if you can find this movie somewhere, find it on DVD, find it on demand or Netflix, it's a very good movie. I think a powerful drama, a few moments of comedy delight in the mood with some great performances from a very talented cast. It's not perfect there. It's not quite great, but there are elements in it that are very close to great. And for that, I think if you're willing to give the movie a chance, you'll find it a fascinating and quite rewarding experience.